Hey, Joseph.
Hello. I heard about Lee and I'm sad.
Yeah, me too, buddy. Me too. You the only one on here so far, buddy?
What?
Are you the only one on here so far?
Yeah.
How's your dad doing?
He's doing better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's Jimmy?
He's doing all right. He got a gaming
right?
computer, so he's like always locked in his room, like yelling and stuff. He's like talking to his friends. It's like, God, like it'll be like freaking 2 a.m. and he's just yelling, and it's like, quiet down, man. But he's good. All I can say is I'm glad that he has friends that stay up with him that late. I don't have friends that'll stay up that late.
Yeah. Ivy has a friend who will stay up with her late playing games. She would stay up all night if she could.
I also don't really generally stay up late, but Jimmy will. Like, God, he stays up really late, and like he starts playing with his friends at like 4 o'clock and doesn't stop until like 12 hours in. And he's like, "All right, good night, bro," and he just like exits out of his game. He's always locked in his room too, because like whenever I knock on his door and I'm like, "Can I come?" and he's like, "No, I'm playing with my friends," and I'm like, "Oh, all right." I just walk off.
How's everyone else on here? So I just found out. That Lee Sexton passed away just a few hours ago. Actually, when I went to pick up my phone to get ready to do this, that was I had 3 different messages waiting on me. So we'll dedicate this today to him, you know, and we'll play some tunes in the old modal key, the old sawmill key that he taught me. So I'm starting in normal pretty polytuning, which is modal, or you just in G and you turn your B string up to C, so you'll be D, G, C, D, and G on the thumb string. This is a good tuning for capoing and being in, you know, playing A modal tunes any cross. One of the when we tune this thumb string down, we'll be in what Lee calls the old cross key tuning, which is really like the old Cumberland Gap tuning, the old Shady Grove tuning. And we'll play some of those tunes in memory of him today. I was actually going to play those tunes anyway today. That was sort of the plan, was to do some of these cross key tunes and start getting into modal. I figure we'll, because I know I talked about going and doing a few more advanced sort of 2-finger tunes in like C and stuff, but we'll keep diving into new tunings. That way we can kind of kill a couple birds with one stone, where we can practice some new tunings. Well, hopefully they're not so, some of these tunings aren't so new to you. Hopefully most of you know this tuning here, the Pretty Polly tuning, the Lonesome John tuning, modal tuning, whatever you want to call it. But it's a great tuning for playing with any fiddler who likes to play out of A. All those tunes of like Rock Andy and stuff, that family of tunes are great played out of this, usually clamped up to about A. Paul David Smith and all those Pike County fiddlers that don't like, some of them, they don't ever cross key. Jimmy McCowan hardly ever tuned cross key on his fiddle. And so when it came time to certain tunes, they would always be in like the key of A's. However, you know, a cross tuned fiddle can be in G. So a lot of times, depending on who's playing and what they feel like doing, a lot of these tunes, this can be transposed between the two. And then we'll get into the where we tune the thumb string down, and we'll explore that, how it's kind of like a can give you an interesting take on tunes that you might have already played in G, because you can, if you just take the way we're tuned now and you put a clamp on the second fret and don't tune this string, you'll technically be in this other key, which if you were playing with someone who's playing with a fiddle out of G, you could be in this tuning, put a clamp on here and be playing with them out of G, but you're going to be playing out of this sort of this position here, which is our F position. And so the key with modal tunes, a lot of times they'll follow the sort of Lonesome John pattern of tunings. So Lonesome John is a nice sort of warm-up tune for this key. I would imagine many of y'all maybe know Lonesome John. Maybe if you've heard, I'm sure it's just like an old standard for, you know, for playing tunes in this key. I'll play it for you. And it was a tune that Bruce Green and I taught together to a group out in where we were out north of Seattle at the Fiddle Tunes Festival, American Fiddle Tunes, and me and Bruce Green had to teach a class together. And one of the tunes we taught was Lonesome John, because it's one of those tunes that's helped a lot of people to get used to some of these little techniques. And it was popularized in bluegrass by Ralph Stanley, who kind of messed with it, you know, and made the clinch mountain back step. But this is like the Cuckoo's popular tune when you have that. That little cuckoo call sort of thing. Lonesome John just kind of goes. And I like in this modal key of using. So when you're tuned, when you do these tunings, it's nice to find where the where the double stop sort of is. So you've got this one here, the second fret. So there's really not many notes you're going to play on the second fret before it's unison with that string there, and that can be used. And by turning the string up, you're kind of, there's another way of doing that in normal G, but by turning the string up, you're getting that little. And there's a lot of different ways to get it. There's a drop thumb way, or and I like using it to emphasize that melody. So if it's emphasizes that. So depending on the phrasing, for me, I think it's more comfortable to sometimes drop thumb it and sometimes do the. It just kind of depends on where you're at, with the way you're playing the melody. So, and the B part, the low part is just there's a line of it. Lonesome John, I fare thee well. Lonesome, or no, wait, yeah. Where did you get those high-heeled shoes? Dress you wear so fine. Got these shoes from a railroad man and the dress from Lonesome John. Maybe that's something like that. It's kind of like a verse from High Top Shoes, sort of. But it's just like. And you're just all playing on that third fret. And then I like this little lick. Chug thing, I tend to hold this string down. I don't know if it's just a habit. It's just a habit that I do. It keeps it kind of like just in like a fifth, like a G fifth kind of ringing out. I guess that's what it would be. Because you just got your G and your D's going on, and then when you bring this in, definitely adds a little different sort of I don't know what you even call it. So you can do either. I mean, you can do. old timers tend to do it without the finger down. I think I don't know what it is about me that wants me to. So yeah, that's all there is really is to Lonesome John. It's all right there, fairly simple. So, and that's just a tune that. So the idea is to try to keep the rhythm going, but. That's the melody. Does that make sense? It's a fun song to practice doing the plucking in this key. We won't stay on it long. I think it's one just kind of you may already be familiar with. I would hope.
Are you or pulling off on that?
That?
Yes.
So what I'm doing is just that constant little pull off with this finger. I'm holding this. So yeah, it's like, hold on. I'm thinking about it too much now. So it's kind of, yeah, fun little stuff to practice. Questions, comments? So the variant tuning is what we'll get into for a little bit today. We'll jump back and forth between these two. We'll get back into modal. I have a few more more complex tunes to show you in modal, but since we're playing tribute to Lee with this one, we're gonna go like down the whole step here. Check it with the tuner here so that we're all Tony they were doing this. I don't see Tony on here today, but Tony said they were doing Hills of Mexico in Montana's class. This is the key for Hills of Mexico. I would imagine it'd be to me, it's a pretty advanced tune to play. We won't do Hills of Mexico. Since we're going to play tribute to Lee's passing today, we're going to play some of the tunes that he liked to stop in the middle of a set and play. So we're in modal. We tune down to F here. My favorite tune to always play was Shady Grove, and I would listen to the way he played Shady Grove and try to figure it out over and over again, and the way he drop thumbed it. And it's very similar to the tune we just played, Lonesome John, in the way that it has a very similar, even like a B part, that the way Lee played. I don't play it exactly like Lee. That's one of the things that's going to be gone forever. But we can carry on the best we can. To me, that's a very relaxing tune to play. I could just sort of fall into that tune and play it for hours and hours on end. It's kind of like it's just a sort of a mesmerizing tune, you know. And on the Woe Mule album, Lee plays it drop thumb style. But whenever I got the call to play with Lee, he wasn't doing so much drop thumb anymore due to the Coon accident, and he was mostly just playing the tune 2-finger style. So that was the way Leah was playing it whenever I was around him. And then, you know, like I said, the other way to play it is more. It's kind of my way of playing it. And it's always just been kind of a relaxing tune for me to play. and it's a nice. It's almost like a interesting version of Lonesome John. If you put that tune next to Lonesome John, you notice just what the G string, the change of this string does to the way that just the normal modal tune works. And you can play tunes that sort of land on this F key out of this tuning, or you can play tunes that are more open, and it just gives them that more of a different sort of mode, I guess you'd say. And other tunes like Little Maggie would be played out of this, which is very similar in very similar. Yeah, we're in Cumberland Gap tuning. So even the Little Maggie is very similar to the way traditional bluegrass players do it, the Ralph Stanley style, in that it goes to this F chord, but with this thumb string, and it gives it a little more of a lonesome sort of sound. It's tunings like this, the only way I can describe them is just it's hard to not just picture the mountains in my mind. It's hard for me to not just picture sitting and looking out over the mountains and seeing the way the fog rises up. If you haven't seen that, I don't, maybe there's something else out there that you can tie this to that sort of has that. But when I hear these old banjo tunings, this is just the images that I conjure up in my head. So Shady Grove, the way I play it overhand, and this may have been something that just came from emulation on my part. The melody is slightly different from maybe your traditional Shady Grove, where it kind of just I'm not sure if it does that on the Woe Mule album, but that's the way I've sort of played that tune for years. So I'm just back on the G. See, there's that lick. See, those licks that are in about every tune. So all I'm doing there, so I'll play it once without the left-handed plucking, and I'll show you how much the left-handed plucking adds to something like that. So adding the plucking. There's also this one. So what I'm doing, and this may have been something that you picked up on earlier, Evan. You may have been picking up on something like this, because you asked about hammering on. So there is an element of a hammer on happening here. But it's not really hammer on. I'm almost hammering on. I'm doing more of like a full off I'm kind of doing that sort of thing, where I'm holding this down and I'm going that sort of lick. So I'm doing the roll right, you know, it's just the left hand plucking is just something that you've got to incorporate into the whole soul of your playing. So that it just kind of comes out in all these little ways, you know, that you're utilizing that left hand to sort of like fill in all the little gaps and spaces that sometimes that you find in banjo music that I always found a little bit awkward. I mean, before playing, but there's something to be said though. There's a lot of banjo players that never do any of the little, you know, the stuff. They don't do it so much. They don't do the back, you know, they don't even drop them so much. And there's some banjo players that just have this great grasp, a very simplistic banjo style but also very, that seems to be able to do everything that I can't do when I do that, if that makes sense. So I have a great admiration of even, you know, like, just the different approaches, you know, that all banjo players have. And, you know, I often think of where my, you know, at this point, I feel like I've learned so much from a lot of the old folks, and the only place for many of us to go at this juncture, you know, is just to keep on pushing and keep on seeing where, you know, we can kind of go with it, all the while, you know, trying to dig into the well of the tradition, you know, and sort of trying to, and that's where all this comes from, I guess. So yeah. That's all that is. And then the high part was basically Lonesome John. When I'm playing. Do I need to go into more depth? Yeah. Looks like you might not be able to see for a kitty cat.
The part B that's like Lonesome John, is Lonesome John very similar to Young Edward that Dora Mae Wagers played on old Kentucky old time banjo?
I would have to double check that. I couldn't say for sure. Lonesome John is a fairly popular tune.
Can I play a little bit to remind you?
Yeah.
Sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds pretty much like Lonesome John, maybe a little different. Maybe just like a little smidget of difference, you know?
Okay. All right. Cool.
But, you know, only differences that like people like you or me might notice.
Well, I like them both. And I like this version of Shady Grove. That's really different and really interesting. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we started off the class with our thumb string in G, and we played a little bit of Lonesome John, and then we, because we are paying tribute to Lee today, we're tuning down to F and getting into his all these little just that lonesome key. So yeah, play around with the Shady Grove. Two finger style in this key. I've done some workshops on playing Cumberland Gap in this key. If there's another tune if there's two tunes you should at least try to learn in this key is Shady Grove and Cumberland Gap. Especially, if you're thinking about the first two tunes that Lee would play when he would tune into this tuning was typically Cumberland Gap or Shady Grove. Cumberland Gap in this key can be played a lot of different ways. This is a good example of if you were to just leave the thumb string in G and put a capo on your right here, you could play Cumberland Gap with a fiddler who's tuned still in G. But in this case, we're actually going to be playing in the key of F, right? So so we've got this sort of F position, which is almost like a G on a guitar. Sort of like a step. And you're going to use this. So Cumberland Gap. Step up to it. Also it'll be like the way I play, I'm bringing up my index finger to the second string. Notice that. And this is another little thing I noticed. This little, I don't know what to even describe it as, but it's just something that a little subtlety. Notice it between where the I don't know what it's just. It's kind of a spot where what's happening here is there's a spot where we talked about this back maybe in the first days of exploring two-finger banjo. There's a spot where it goes from leading with the thumb to leading with the index finger. And that's where this little just simple, real simple, just because the rest of the tune you have to get this sort of little index lead thing going on. But that part's pretty simple. You're keeping these two strings open and you're just I don't restrict. So this is one of the few strings for me that gets I don't necessarily designate a certain finger to a certain string. So when I'm going up to the high part, I'm using my thumb on the second string there. But when I come back down, I'm using my, because I kind of want my thumb to be ready to do that. Because I could go. I feel like that would overwork my thumb. I can go. And I love that little, love how that sounds. So here we'll do it up close here from this angle. And the high part. So let me show you just kind of where the notes are. You're starting with this, but you're going to go. You've got this little bar that you do here. That's your little trick there. So. It's simple, but it's hard at the same time. That's the first part. Oh, my bad. So I'm just doing the same lick. Except I'm starting it here the second time around. And then I do the, instead of just, so I try to variate it a little bit. I'll go. Instead of just going, I'll go. I'll do that little. And this helps get you used to going into a, this gets you used to going into a finger lead sort of thing. Hold on, I'm getting something in the way here. Okay. So the trick of this tune, the part of the tune that gets everybody, is the transition back. So there's a singled out sort of part that's the transition back, okay, to the playing the A part. Does that make sense? A lot of these old timey tunes, they'll have something like that in it. So Cumberland Gaps is this. So here it is. So this is the transition part. You know, it just starts here. So and then you would come in with the verse. So it'd be like, lay down, boys, take a little nap, 5 more miles to the Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap, lay down yonder, way down yonder in the Cumberland Gap. And then a little pull off there. And that transition part is also kind of like the ending. So, and it you're basically just like coming back into the B part sort of backwards, I guess. Leave that all kind of open. It sounds really nice. The high part here. So, and this is something that Lee would do, you know, just sort of sometimes he would do, you know, the first couple of rounds he would do it like I just showed you, and then about the third round into it he would do this. He would be like, instead of that he would go. So you're up on the 12th fret here. And you go down, step down to the 10th. So you go. And that's all it is. So your first couple of times through. There's a lot, it's like a light pull off that you can really mess up if you do it wrong. As soon as I started to try to point it out to you, notice that I started screwing it up, but I do it sort of ever so lightly. You hear it in there? You hear it in there? It's a really light pull off that sort of happens there. So you're just going. Or you can use this finger, whichever one you want. That's all it is. That little lick there, that's a really useful 2-finger lick. There it is. There it is again. Really fun tune to sit around and play. Very lonesome tune, but one that will always associate with Lee Sexton. You know, there'll never be any mistaken. Anytime you hear somebody play Cumberland Gap like that, where they got it from. You know, there's many ways to play Cumberland Gap in that tuning, like Cumberland Gap. You can hold down on it. You know, it's a great tune for fiddling and dancing and all that sort of stuff. We'll do one more in this key. I don't know how much time we got left today. This is my timekeeper here. I don't know if I would turn you guys off to go look at what time it is. What's that? Quarter after? we'll do one more tune out of this key, and this is a tune that this was a tune that I was that Lee told me, that it was a tune that I needed to learn to play in drop thumb, because he felt that this tune sounded the best drop thumb style. He could play it, but it was one of those tunes that I think that I don't know if he didn't play it so much after the Coon accident or whatever. But this is one I can remember just one day at his house in his living room, him showing me kind of how this tune goes. And the tune is Buck Creek, or Buck Creek Girls. This is the sort of the common tuning associated with this tune. However, the more deeper we get into this, there's a whole another tuning that's more closely related to like old Rubens tuning, where you can also play all these tunes that we're playing, like the Cumberland Gap, the Shady Grove. There's actually a whole other dimension of this tuning that we'll get into. But this tune here, many of these tunes cross over. You can play them great in this tuning, and you can play them great in the other tuning as well. Buck Creek is a similar tune to Kentucky Wild Horse, as it's known more like, well, as we say, out in the bluegrass area of the state. I think there could be 3 parts to this. I kind of just play 2. I feel like I've not heard many people play Buck Creek with the 3rd part. That maybe that's what makes it Wild Horse. And it's a very similar tune to like what's the Miss McLeod's Reel, tunes like that. Very great dance number. But it has a very cool thing that this key has that we haven't hit on yet, and that's this ability to go to a minor chord. So I'll show you here the tune. And why the drop thumb kind of makes this song really good. And pretty fun tune to play. It's another one of those real kind of relaxing tunes, but it's also got a bite to it, which is what I like about it. You can play this tune, like Cumberland Gap, like Shady Grove, like a lot of those tunes. You can play these tunings out of just G if you want to. But this tune for me is particularly harder to play out of G. And it's much easier to play out of this key because you have this. That's your main lick. You hit the bass string, excuse me. Hit this. Hammer on. So it's like. got a very sort of when you go to play that two finger style, it starts to sound like Hills of Mexico a little bit. It has that sort of feeling to it. I'm doing a lot more drop thumbing in this. You know, Lee, when in his days of drop thumbing, if you listen to any of those records, he was very kind of like very precise sounding drop thumb player, very clean sounding. And that was actually, I'd actually gotten a word of advice from another drop thumb banjo player that it was important to keep your playing, you know, sort of under control, not get too crazy about it, to keep it clean, they said. Lacey Hale's dad told me that. See how to explain this tune. See, you're keeping this pattern about the whole time. I'm hammering on this. That little hammer on happens right here on the second fret on the second string. So fun. So that first. Sense. Well, it sounds better to me to pull this finger off after this hammer on. There's that lick from Lonesome John, that little. Sense. You just have to play with it. I always call it climbing the ladder. Because you're just kind of. These two, you know, there's these just designated one fret per string that you're going to play, except for maybe there. So, you know, it's never almost not the second fret. So let's go to the B part real quick. So any words I ever heard from this just went at sort of into the transition to the B part or something. It's like. Let's try to sing the words. So basically, you're walking into this E minor chord that you're going to sort of hit. And you can choose to, you know, a lot of the old timers wouldn't necessarily play, like emphasize the chords sometimes. A lot of times Lee would just play, you know, the one finger that he needed to get the melody across, and then just let all the open strings do what they got to do. So it's basically. So it's just, the melody is just here. Just always there. So that's all it is. So what you're doing is you're going to make real good use of having an open bass note as well as this and this. So what you're going to do, you're going to make use of the fact that you have all these notes ringing out on that melody that you need. So you can lock in kind of your rhythm playing in a way. So that's what I mean. I'm focusing my right hand on the bass strings, see, so that I get that. Does that make sense? So this little thing here, there's that, and then I also find myself doing this. So I'm doing that little that we've done in other tunes. So, but I'm going. But again, I'm focusing my attention with this hand too. What do we think? Nice little run. There's a lot of great tunes to learn how to play out of this tune. You know, any song that you have, even, you know, that has that. I think about guitar tunes that go from like a G to an E minor. You know, any tune that has that sort of thing in it. There's a lot of little ditties to play in this key. There's a lot of fun stuff to sort of figure out. We used to do Solid Gone out of this tuning, Carter Family. Lee plays Wildwood Flower out of this tuning, I'm pretty sure. I'm just trying to figure it out. You know, I know I've sat next to Lee. Well, if he gets to play in this key for a long period of time, it's interesting what he gets into playing. Danville Girl, he plays out of this key. I don't think it's necessarily how Doc Boggs tuned to play Danville Girl, but Lee has a version of Danville Girl that he plays out of this tuning. I've yet to sort of pick up on. I would have to sit around and probably play around with it, and I could probably figure out how, you know, a version of Danville Girl. Little Maggie, like I said before, is a lot of these tunes. Once you get the basic licks down that you learn out of, you know, the basic songs like Cumberland Gap and all that, these other tunes, that all that stuff just sort of comes naturally. Like with Little Maggie is like. tuning makes so much of a difference in the way this stuff sounds. So do you guys have any questions? Anything before we go this evening? Send our love out to the Sexton family, you know, to Opal and Johnny.
John, I can tell you after having been in that 2018 Cowan class and learning a bunch of songs on this with you, man, I love this key. It is so nice to just jam around. And like you said, you mentioned once Lee got to playing it in a while, he would just branch off into other things. And I find myself doing that, you know. I think it's a really natural thing to do.
There's actually, there's actually a lot of even up the neck kind of thing.
Yeah.
Depending on how your banjo is dotted, this one is dotted different because it's like 1909. Usually your dot's here. All these. It's all there. All your dots on a modern banjo. You know what I mean? All the. See what I mean? So that you can kind of. You know, there's all these little fun things in this little tuning. I can't remember what I used to play when we were in the band, Rich and the Po Folks. We did some songs as a band that required this banjo tuning, and I had some breaks I had to play. Mainly for Solid Gone, which is kind of like a Railroad Bill-ish sort of tune. Something like that. But there's these nice those little chords that we've talked about before. You know, you can find those in this tuning as well. And you just got to remember where to land. All right, well, we'll see you guys next week. Like I said, play one for Lee in his memory. He'll be greatly missed. One of my greatest achievements in life was just him calling me on the phone and having me come and play for him. You know, it's like, couldn't ask for nothing else. What's that?
Watch Line Fork.
Yeah.
Really nice documentary about Lee and his family.
Yeah. Well, you all have a good week. I'll close the meeting out.
Do you have those DVDs? Do you have any extras of those, John?
I don't. Lee was sitting on a stack of them. I don't know if they are be at his house. They were in the corner of his trailer one of the last times I was over there. But you know, it's going on now a year since I even got to go over there due to, you know, the COVID stuff. I tried to help. When we first had to cancel some gigs, I think it was the year before when he just got those, and you know, Lee could go play a gig and sell out everything he had. You know what I mean? And he was sitting on all those things, and so I took it upon myself there for a while to try to move some of them for him. You know, I would buy them off him, and then I would just sell them for the same price I bought them off him. You know. I never really I didn't make any money off of them, but the goal was that I knew Lee was, at this time, Lee was having a lot of water issues, like his legs are swelling up and he couldn't go out. He couldn't control his bladder and all that. I would like to think that they're still sitting on a pile of those over, you know, and, you know, if it can be if those can be somehow sold in a way that would help pay for, that would help the family out to help, that would be nice.
I'd buy a big old handful of them.
Yeah. Okay.
And give them away if you can get your hands on them.
Yeah. Okay.
I had the honor of going and meeting him at his house once. So.
Yeah, that used to be a big thing for Cowan, the trip out to see Lee.
Yep.
And it was, I'm sure it's a highlight. It was always a big highlight of the week for a lot of folks.
You may need to, I heard the raccoon story while I was there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've told the whole story to this group or how many people know it, but maybe sometime before we get done.
Yeah. I would imagine if a lot of folks, if you'd even been around Lee at all, you probably heard the coon story.
Yeah.
Like and about the shots and having to get the rabies shots and all that stuff. It's yeah. The cool thing about Lee was that he had these handful of tunes that he was always playing out, but he always had these stories too that you could tell. Man, he liked working on telling those stories. And all those tunes had these stories that went along with them, and stuff will be missed.
Yep.
I'll let you guys get off here.
Thank you.
Sean.
Yeah, thank you guys.